And how are you? My name is Scott Churchson alongside Mr. Robert Leckington and also Mr. JT McGuire. And this is Tales from the Film Set on Spanglish World Network, Zingo TV, channel 249 and 250. Kindly to remember to download the Zingo TV app on the app stores of Android and iOS devices. The app is free, so basically when you download, feel free to leave a comment. Can't beat the price. Zingo TV, by the way, is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Gentlemen, hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to another, by the way, first Tales from the Film Set for spring 2022. Happy spring now. We are going to be talking in this point about the world of multimedia journalists, especially field reporters and the fun stuff that they have to deal with, plus also how it actually ties into the acting world as well. But before we get to that, gentlemen, how are you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to kind of talk a little bit about this in this episode tonight. So I have a few ideas.
All right. Good. So, but in this case, by the way, Ryan O'Regan is actually down in Florida right now on vacation. So when it comes right down to it, being at Disneyland or Disney World apparently is better than being here. You know, we got rain and 50 degrees. He's got like 85 in the sun. Apparently that's what he'd rather do right now. So,
well, yeah, getting a little bit of sun and getting a little tan. That's always a good thing.
Yeah, you know, because Lord knows I could use it.
That's him saying to you, like, I'm watching you.
Basically, yeah, he's probably sitting there he's probably like, you guys suck. We hate you. I'm here in Florida to get away from you, and yet I'm still commenting on how you guys are trash. But yeah, so basically, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say he should have joined our show from Epcot.
Yeah, right. You know, we live stream it, man. So,
well, that was kind of one of the things that I was going to try and talk to you guys about was like, you know, I mean, being able to get some kind of person out on the streets, beating the streets, you know, I mean, to be able to interview people and
hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, as far as everything that we've got going on and everything, yeah, I do want to start moving in some of the directions like that. Maybe some documentary stuff that we're going to do, but we'll get to that in due time.
Sure.
I'll get you guys caught up on what's going on in this tiny little brain of mine in its own course. But tonight, like I said, we're going to be talking about the world, and we have not done this yet, of news journalism, multimedia journalism, field reporting, and why, honestly, it kind of sucks. You know, paint this scenario for a second. You go to school for 4 years. You know, you go to school for journalism and everything like this. And say you grew up in the New Jersey area like here. Now, this is obviously a very large market. I don't know as far as what the numbers are, but obviously New York City, LA are the big markets in the country. New Jersey is probably pretty solid. But when it comes to becoming a news person, and I looked into this for a while when I got out of school, I looked at the possibility of uprooting the family to pursue something in the area of, you know, news reporting, field reporting, and things like that. And then I had to find out that I had to go all the way out to places like Idaho, Wyoming, Arkansas, you know, Alaska, you know, and head out to places like that to deal with stories about the hurricane, the tornado, the blizzard, Alaska. And oftentimes for as little as $12 to $15 an hour. And I was shocked by that. Some of the places that I looked at out west in some of the markets, which they call like top 150, top 250 markets, they were paying barely above minimum wage for a field reporter to be the guy who's actually standing there, you know, reporting from the street after a grisly murder happened, you know, reporting from the street when, you know, in the middle of a hurricane, or covering whatever, like, you know, penguin race happens to be going on at the local zoo. Somebody got paid $12 an hour.
Well, let me ask you this, because you're talking from your own experience. When did you try doing this? What period of time?
3 years ago. 3 years ago, and sort of, and last year as well, or not 2 years ago as well. So 2019, 2020.
Not to call you out on your show, sir, but
Call
considering
me out on our show. Let's do it what it is.
But considering that I've worked in news, including our area, for 14 years, and you've known me for at least 10, you could have saved yourself some trouble by asking me about the news business.
Yeah, I know. But and actually, that's not as bad a call out as I was expecting. Boy, that if you're going to get called out on something, you know, being called out on, you could have asked me about this, as opposed to basically you're dead wrong in everything you said and you're stupid as hell. No, I like the call out you gave me.
Nice.
You know,
I
mean,
never
you-
got into it from that perspective. Like when I got into TV, it was basically like, I like film. This is pretty close, and they paid me money for it. So,
you know
but-
what it is? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, I was gonna say I started at. I'm of course we're in the New York, New Jersey market. So I started 14 years ago at around $13.50 an hour, and that was for the lowest paid position at the station. Granted, the other positions were only paid like $1 or $2 more, so it wasn't that bad. But did I have a point I was going with this? No, I wouldn't.
No, yeah, you're sitting there bragging about when I started in the industry, I was making more than they were.
I'm just saying, like you're saying $12 an hour, but I guess you're looking for at the other markets. Yeah,
Yeah,
if you go towards the
smaller.
Midwest and less populated areas,
Right.
yeah, you're going to get paid more because you're going to get paid the rate of the cost of living in those areas.
Go ahead, Rob.
Well, now when it comes to like the field recording, my girlfriend Sandy, she's got cousins by marriage that are like Howard. God, I can't even think. Like Jay Dow, Harold
Mhm.
Dow. Jay Dow is he works for, I guess, Pix 11 News.
Okay.
He's a field recorder. He actually makes really good money doing what he does. He goes pretty much all over the country. He's been to a couple different other countries to report on things and bring those reports back to the United States and everything. But for the most part, they started out, especially Harold. Harold started out in Oklahoma. He was like one of the first black reporters to be on air in the Oklahoma City area. And this was like back in the late 60s,
Okay.
early 70s. So, you know that it's grown since then and everything, but you almost have to go to these smaller markets just to break in.
You do.
And then once like the bigger markets see that you've done a pretty good job with those smaller markets, then they'll be like, okay, well, let's at least let this person in and see what they can do.
Well, it's sort of like the movie business where, you're not going to start off as the star of a big budget film. It's you kind of start at some small parts, some commercials here and there. And as you get noticed, you moved up. And some people even go a little backwards. Where I worked, again, we're in the New York market. I knew people who would be at like the assignment desk, but they wanted to be on air and they couldn't get on air. So they would leave our company, go to I know people have gone to Detroit, to Chicago, get in their market, do a little bit of work, and then come back as a reporter now showing, hey, you see, I can do this.
Right.
I literally had a guy, I got put in touch with somebody via some anchor out of Washington, D.C., some kid who went through that. He went to school at like Monmouth County or someplace, and then he spent a year or two in Nebraska, as the guy just reporting on basically the farm reports and building himself up. And I guess Nebraska is probably like a 250 market where it's like in the top 250 biggest markets in the country, which when it comes down to it really isn't that big. New York, LA, top 1 and 2. I don't know which one's which. So it's normal in this case. And this is when I went back to school, this is what they prepped you for. It's like you have to be ready to get up and go someplace. And I ended up putting in, cover letter and resume, to Jacksonville, to Toledo, Ohio, to Canada. That's actually kind of sort of how I ended up here with Spanglish World Network. Go fig. And, all these places all over, really, like the 2 continents and even Europe. I mean, I put in for Australia. I put in for a lot of different places. And when I kept coming back with how much I would get paid for it at $11, $12 an hour, maybe 13, hell, we'll say 15, just for argument's sake. I was sitting there thinking to myself, I cannot uproot me and Robin. I can't leave, my parents, her parents, and uproot and move, 1,500, 2,000 miles away for something that's barely above minimum wage when you can literally make more than that in a day as a background actor, eating and sleeping and holding for 4 hours in between watching episodes of stuff on Hulu.
Well, that's because most people who do become reporters, they're not looking for it just for to be on camera.
Mhm.
They're actually into the news. It's funny how many times I've actually gone to like a college to talk to them, and I'm an engineer, so I go like, "How many people want to be engineers?" No one raises their hand. How many of you want to be on air talent?
Yeah, the ego and the glory of in front of the camera. It's like, yes, I report for News 12 the Bronx, and people like, oh my god, that's so cool. Yeah, I'm the guy that's actually talking about all the shootings that just happened that I make barely minimum wage.
Right.
Well, the problem now is when I started in the business a few years ago, it was out going in this direction then, but it's more prevalent now. Basically, that used to be like there's the reporter, and the reporter's job was to interview people and get all the notes, and then she had with them what was called a photojournalist,
Mhm.
and it was really a cameraman, but they would call it photojournalist because it sounds more professional.
More prestigious, yeah.
And that person would go out and they'd get all the B-roll for the story they were going to cover. They would interview people, get SOTs, and would film the reporter themselves, either giving their stand-up or whatever. As time's gone on, they've decided like, well, do we really need to give you a cameraman? Do you really need a photojournalist with you?
Mhm.
And instead, they have to go out with their own camera, their own lighting gear, their own microphone. So now they're doing the job of like still getting the story, writing the story, interviewing the people, but then they have to frame their own camera for their stand-ups. Like you gentlemen know how hard it is to actually set up a regular camera just to film
This
yourself.
was the next place we were going to go with this part, but yes, please.
Basically, these people are like out there in like the bad storms where it's raining or blizzards, or a shooting just happened, or there's a murderer on the loose, or what have you, and they're there setting up expensive equipment by themselves.
Yeah.
And filming themselves in like, I hope no one, and at the same time have to think, what am I going to be saying here? Am I framed right? Is the microphone working right? Am I light lit correctly? Because you don't want to look like a ghost with the lights coming up under your eyes.
Mhm.
And then remember, this is in addition to them getting all their B-roll, like, okay, pretty shot, pretty shot, pretty shot, pretty shot, getting the SOTs. Hey, tell me about this. Tell me about that. And then sitting down and editing that all together.
Yeah.
As I said, I went to a college. I interviewed these people, including the people who were like, yeah, I want to be famous. None of them wanted to be an editor. None of them wanted to be a videographer. None of them wanted to do any of this technical stuff. They
Guess
expected
what?
they expected to be reporters and someone else to do it. And now anyone who gets into business, and I'm looking at the camera, I'm talking to anyone there who's been thinking about this. Anyone who gets into the business, this is what you're going to do. You're going to be as much of a technician as you are any other part of your job.
And still get paid $12 an hour.
Very possibly, yeah. Well, see, that's the part that I didn't realize either. Because, I mean, okay, when I went back to school, I mean, I was at a loss on what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go and everything. And I figured, okay, radio, TV, I'll figure it out. I was really, really shocked because generally speaking, despite the editing that I do, I hate editing. I really hate editing, and the realization that, you have to get all the B-roll, you have to do the interview. You have to assume that basically there's no glitches. There's nothing ended up happening going south, that there's no massive wind, noise, whatever the case is. And then to be able to slice it up and edit it, usually for one very, very tight deadline, for a 2 to 3 to 5 minute bit, whatever it's going to be. And it's not just, talk camera, talk B-roll. It's, sometimes you got to put the B-roll underneath, over the top of the audio and cut yourself out entirely. It's so much of an editing psychological process that even with, for example, what I was doing before, when we had the sports den a couple hours ago, I'm sitting there editing B-roll for clips for what happened with March Madness. And that's the kind of stuff that you have to do and have it in for a complete 100% deadline, or else you're out of a job and they'll find someone else immediately, in like an hour and a half.
Well, and this is the one thing I'm not liking about the industry these days is just how many of these jobs are getting combined into one. I've been working as a broadcast engineer I'm repeating myself at this point, 14 years.
Okay.
But the reason I'm pointing out is I had the experience where I'm dealing with these people who really don't know that much about tech. You know how frustrating it is to tell a reporter who's busy putting their story like, well, I'm putting this on the board and I'm doing this with the board and the audio's not coming out right or the camera's not looking correctly. And you want to yell at them, but at the same time you take into your hand you take into account like this person shouldn't be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's where a lot of it comes in, where I think that's more of the old school aspect of it. One of the teachers that I had is a guy named Roger All, who does Fox 5 Sports, and he's been doing it for like 30 some years. And he would talk about the fact that the people that didn't know how to edit or didn't want to edit were shown the door so amazingly quickly, because they can be replaced by 50, 22-year-old kids fresh out of college who are like, I know the Adobe Suite. I've been working on the Adobe Suite since I was 10. So they come in with it already basically polished on teleprompter in front of camera. They already have the experience when it comes to editing. They already know everything about pretty much everything in there. And the news outlets themselves are just taking the attitude of, all right, here's what you get. This is what's going to happen. This is what we need. Boom, 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 go. And it's so easy to, how do I put this? With everything that's involved there, it's so easy for a news company and things like that to replace someone who doesn't come in, who does not actually do the job or can't hold it up, because there's so many people coming through college right now with it.
But at that point, I think you reach a plateau where people are just not going to want to come into the industry anymore either, because they're going to see how hard it is and they're going to say, hey, it's not worth it. In a day and age where you have TikTok and YouTube and you can make yourself your own star, why do you need to be a part of some other company to do it?
Well, see, and that's where it kind of in lies with like auditioning for film and things like that. I think that a lot of these casting directors, the way even with the pandemic sort of pushing that along even faster, was that in the beginning, before the pandemic, they wanted people to at least figure out how to use the camera, how to use lights, that type of thing, how to set up the shot for your self tapes and things like that. But now that the pandemic is past, it's sort of become like a normal. Well, yeah, you know what I'm saying. So
it's not past, but it's closing in that direction, and it is a new normal in some ways.
It should be gone soon. But
so the self taping, yeah, I mean it's a way for an actor to learn how the production does what they do, and in a way, when you were saying that it sort of kind of maybe that actor kind of gets discouraged and doesn't want to like continue acting because that they have to go through this process and everything. It's sort of maybe it's a way for them to weed out the people that are serious and not so serious. So
yeah, a cream rises to the top kind of mentality in both fields like that. But yeah, even with acting, the expectation that you can actually create your own content as well does play a factor in that, especially with the self tapes now, because I have not been in for a physical audition since probably 2019. Everything now is done on self tape. It's easier on both sides of it. I'll talk to casting directors who are sitting on the couch while their cat's walking all over them. I'll sit there and I'll just knock it out over here in the corner. And in this case, it's funny because with the self tapes now, and this is where I think both industries have this. With the self tapes now, they're getting about 4 times the amount of audition tapes than they used to. So if you had 5 people reading for a role, now you got 20. If you had 10 people reading, now you got 40 to 50. So they can just bang out one after another and just knock it out quickly. And as a result, with the self tape, your ability to be able to edit, to be able to light, they say officially, don't worry about lighting. We just want to see you. No, bullcrap. They want to see it all. They want to see what you've got. Because every single person that I've talked to people about that, they're like, well, how do I get in? I can't, I get in, but I never get it. Well, how is your edit? Let me take a look at it. What's your editing style like? And they're like, well, I don't know how to edit. So what are you doing? Well, I put it on my phone like this, and and it's like, no, they expect more. Now in my go ahead.
No, I think that's completely ridiculous. Why
What is there?
why would you expect a actor to be a perfect editor or perfect at lighting or perfect at taking video of themselves? Like
Dude,
Wow.
not that I've made any big films, but like the few indies that I ever did, I'm looking at their acting. I'm looking how
Mhm.
they're going to play the role. I don't because once they're on my set, they're not doing the lighting. They're not doing the camera work. Why? That should not matter.
It
Well,
shouldn't matter, and obviously this is something that's irking you a bit, but
You,
it
you
does
just
make
said it should matter. Why
no,
should
no,
it
no,
matter?
no. I'm not. I'm saying it should
there's
matter now
yeah,
because the expectation is there that you have to do it,
right.
and if you don't do
Oh,
it, you get left behind.
that's ridiculous.
The expectation is
I-
there.
if
Casting
the
directors.
expectation, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
No,
Rob.
go ahead, go
I
ahead,
just want to say
rant
this
away.
real quick. Like the expectation shouldn't be there. And if you expect everyone to do everything on a film, if you expect like, oh, if I'm gonna hire this person, they're gonna do everything my crew can do. Well, guess what? I obviously don't need you
That's
because I can
true.
direct myself too.
Well,
You
here
are correct.
that's the funny thing about indie films too. You could have a PA who can also basically grip, or boom mic or anything like this, or hell, even edit on indie films. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if you had a PA that was basically
Oh,
double, triple, quadruple duty.
when I started doing indie films, it used to be a 2 to 3 man crew where it'd be like
Mhm.
me doing camera and audio and lighting along with my other friend, and we'd act in. But I mean, that's indie films. That's little things. It's not a bigger production where you should
Mhm.
have a full crew.
Dude, there will be times where on some of those auditions, I will spend 2 hours to make it look right. And then of course I don't hear anything anyway. So
Right.
it's like, well, I
I'm
was
sorry
like,
for
I've done
interrupting
that.
you. I'm sorry for interrupting you, Rob. I really needed to get that point in before.
okay. Do you have any more? Do you want to just keep rolling a little bit more? Just take,
Oh, you'll know.
breathe
You'll know.
in through the nose, out through the mouth,
Yeah.
you're a leaf. You're a leaf in a calm stream. No, but yeah, it's like I said, if you can't do it, someone else can, and your audition
Yeah.
will not look as crisp as someone else's will. And believe it or not, yeah, they're going to notice that. It sucks,
I've
Now,
but
now let me ask you this: Are you saying this because for fact or from observation? Do you think this is how it is, or is this truly how it is? Have you known of people who they are not accepted for a role because they didn't know how to make a full fledged
well,
production out of
I
their audition?
I have an
as
answer to
one
that.
of
But
the
go ahead.
things that like when you do these self tapes, they give you the breakdown. They tell you what they want. When it comes to the actual video and the actual lighting and things like that, that's almost expected because they want to be able to see your whole face. They want to be able to see your action, that kind of thing. Whether or not you spend 2 hours, setting up for that, that's up
Do they
to.
direct you?
No, well, that's now you're getting into like live auditions through the EcoCast system that they do through Actors Access, and
Okay, so for this tape stuff, they're expecting you to properly, like I would say, like yes, put enough light that they could see your face. But if they expect you like, okay, I want this for a drama scene. I need you to set up the light like this with this filter and blah blah blah.
well, no, they don't do that.
Not that strict, but
Right.
there is something to it. Go ahead.
But like the lighting I have, would that be acceptable?
They just want you to
Probably.
be able to do the scene. They want to be able to see your face. They want to see your action. They want to see, you do the scene. When it comes to the actual, like, when it comes to the actual filming of that comes later. But
Well, you can see my face with this lighting, and this is
Mhm.
kind of lousy lighting. Would this be acceptable lighting?
Probably would be, yes.
I
Okay.
would say
I might
so.
do I might
Alright.
do a little cleanup on the editing side of it, but um, but there
Well,
there
the
will
editing side too. What cleanup needs to be done on the editing side?
it could be something with the lighting in there a little bit. Audio definitely. I'll make sure I will run that through a cleanup process every time.
Right now, see
I'll
with
do a noise. What I'll usually do is I'll extract the video, turn it into an MP3, do a noise removal of whatever's in there, and then upload it back up to the top again to make the audio a little more crisp. Then what I might do is I might do a change in there and do do it for voice instead of flat.
Personally, I use either Final Cut Pro for like the stuff that I really want to like
Mhm.
make perfect, because there's a lot of presets and things like that that you can use with Final Cut Pro. But for the most part, with these auditions, these self tapes that I do, I use like iMovie. I'll go in and uh, automate, I guess, is auto set the audio,
Oh,
or
like a
if it
magic
doesn't.
enhance.
Yeah, exactly. So if I still think that it's not loud enough, that it doesn't come through enough, I can always raise that volume by it's a lot easier to use like the video editing. But then for me too, like when I do my scenes, I have to shorten them only because I have to work myself up into the scene and everything. And so I'll shorten it to where just right before the scene, but if I have to do like say 2 takes, I'll put in like a transition or something like that. I
Mhm.
mean, otherwise you'd just be like
That's not that bad.
spending.
That's not that bad to do, but
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
but
but
for me,
ed-
go ahead. I was gonna say
Well, what I was going to say is, even with casting, they just usually have one little dinky camera set up to catch it
but
so they can
they set
review
that
it.
up. You didn't. That was
right.
their
That
decision.
doesn't matter because if they review it, it's the same audio they're going to get
Hmm.
and the same video. Would that be acceptable audio? Because I feel like as long as you can be heard clearly, even if there's room noise,
Hmm.
like that should be acceptable.
Here's what
Should
I
be.
will say. I've seen audition requests, demands sometimes, depending on phraseology you want, where in some cases they want a pure white background. They do not want an off-white background. So what I got here is an off-white background. They want pure white, which of course, dude, I'm I'm one of the pastiest people you're ever going to meet anyway. You do not want me on a pure white background. I will literally be transparent. Um, but they want stuff like that. They will take they want the camera specifically on certain shots and certain takes. I remember I had one where they wanted a shot of the hand and the hand on the other side, and then they wanted the hand turned this way, and then they wanted the camera literally on top like this. I had to do so much like this because they were said you have to do it with a cell phone because it has to show that you're using a cell phone for it. And I was like, all right, fine.
It's almost
And
like
I
that.
had to do this, and they had basically you had to take video of what this looked like this, and then I had to review the video itself, and it was so complicated. It was pissing me off because
It's
of
almost
how
like the Brown
involved.
M&M situation with Van Halen,
Dude,
right?
it's like trying to find one brown M&M in an entire bag. Yeah.
Yeah.
I say the same thing I said with the news people. There's going to reach a plateau where people are just not going to want to do this anymore, or better yet, to say they're not going to want to do it for those people anymore. It's like, oh well, we're
No.
the box office, we're Fox and Disney, and
Every
like
single every single casting director that I've dealt with since 2020, even just before 2020, they've wanted, what they want with their self tapes. And if you don't give them what they want, now the lighting, obviously, the audio and stuff like that, that's a different story. You have to do the best that you can, but if you don't give them what they want as listed in the breakdown, then they just pass you up.
And they'll remember it for the next time, which is also what you have to think about. Every audition is a future audition for something else.
fug them,
What's that?
fug them.
By the way, for the
I
record,
can't say the other word, so to clear, I
it was
said
FUG, by the
FUG
way.
because I really want to say the other one.
FARC. You want to say FARC? There we go.
Yeah, that's
But
it.
yeah, like I
Anyway.
said, it's clearly this is something you hadn't realized. I guess we never talked about it,
Because I'm
but-
not an actor,
which
and so
is not a bad thing either. you know,
Working with Goldberg, though, I mean, he's a filmmaker himself, and he kind of feels like he's like got his finger on the pulse when it comes to casting and things like that. But he's also trying to, like, I would say, kind of skirt the system in a way, kind of putting that idea into my head. Maybe you should do this kind of thing, and I'm like, no, this is what they want. This is what you do.
No, it's not even really what they want. I'm going to be realistic. You know what this is? This is like 1,000 people going for the same role, and
literally,
you trying to
yes.
stand out.
Well,
And that's what a lot of it is. But
and if you-
unfortunately, because of that, it also raises the expectation of some casting people. I'm not saying like the big ones. I'm not saying the ones for like Mrs. Maisel or like Blue Bloods or SVU. They got their stuff together. But I'm talking the smaller commercial ones. You know, a lot of them have very specific things in mind, maybe because they themselves are not that clear and they maybe not have as much experience. So that one that I mentioned with the cell phone and all of this kind of stuff and all that stuff I had to do, I was a name I hadn't recognized. And it was a job that was only like $500 too. So the amount of time I put in for it, you know, to not hear back was clearly not worth the time. But when I've had callbacks, for example, for Mrs. Maisel, which of course I'd never gotten, because even if they need somebody who's 5'11", pasty skin, chestnut hair, and stunt experience, you know, I don't get it anyway. But it's funny because with Mrs. Maisel, they're a lot more chill about it, where you get to like a callback and then it's a Zoom audition. So it's pretty much like this, and they understand that it will not be as top notch because there's no post-production involved.
Yeah.
You know, and they're a lot more forgiving on that one because I'll set it up, you know, the same setup I usually have against the wall over here. And they're like, okay, can you just move this a little bit, just change this a little bit here and there? But for the most part, they're pretty chill. For the initial edition, for some of the indie stuff, or some of the like the commercials, like the Facebook commercials, we'll say it that way. They want it specific, where they want it only from like navel up. You have to, you know, you cannot do it widescreen. You have to do it this way. No, you can't do it this way. You have to do it that way. You know, and it's like I said, it's so much involved, and it gets really frustrating when you put all that time and all that effort in to try and land, you know, some kind of a gig, and it never goes anywhere because you've logged an hour to 2 hours in post to try and make this thing look as pristine as possible because it's what they have come to expect.
My advice is don't go into acting.
Become a background actor. Bring cars to set. You know, picture cars to set is an easy way to make a good payday and health insurance.
I think this is why I just didn't go to the industry in general. Like all this stuff to me is so ridiculous, and I feel like every time I hear about the film industry, once it gets to a certain level, it's like, why would anyone put up with this? You're all getting paid near nothing unless you're part of the union or you're a big name.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's why it's like, yeah, I'll be an engineer and I'll make indie films in my free time, because otherwise I will lose my sanity.
Well, I'll say this though. Non-union background actors start their day at $165. So that's the New York area anyway. You know, if you go to Atlanta, it doesn't matter if you're SAG or non-SAG. You start, I think, at $64 a day. So even here in the New York City area, a non-union background actor can make some decent coin.
I think we had a different episode about this, about like how much money you can make as a background actor. But yeah, like look how much I want this supporting role. Well, sir, we're gonna need you to film from up here down here.
Yeah.
We're gonna have you light up this way. We need some moonlighting. By the way, do you have some professional audio equipment? We have to make sure there's no room tone in there.
Now, in this case, also, I just want to point out the commercial is going to be shot in Paris, but you can't use a green screen. We'd rather have you on location for this audition. Can you do that?
By the way, we're not going to pay for you to go to Paris. You're unfortunately going to have to pay that out of pocket.
Yes, but you know, do you really want the role though? Are you serious about acting? Is this really what you want to do?
You do speak fluent French, right?
Yes.
You're also going to need some Italian as well.
And it's basically, and Belgian. And by the way, how is your Tagalog and Mongolian?
Oh, not to mention your Bronx. You know, you got to have the Bronx to lead into the Italian, to lead into the French.
Oh yeah. You know, yeah. What kind of Italian? What dialect of Italian is it?
Exactly.
Is it Sicilian? Is it Roman? You know, is it Vatican? Do you speak Vatican Italian? You know, we need
forget it. We're just going to hire a British actor.
Yeah, right.
To do everything.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for all that stuff. We actually decided not to do the role itself, and we decided to give it to someone.
Henry Cavill. We have given to Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill, Ryan Reynolds, The Rock. You know, I'm waiting for some movie where basically The Rock ends up being like, you know, the Pope or the priest, or you know, just something. You know, something where The Rock is just like, really, you made him that this time.
Well, I'm doing that for his current film, like Black Adam. It's like, okay, you're going to play the villain for Shazam, Black Adam. It's like, well, I don't want to be the villain, but Shazam's a villain. You have to play the villain. I want to play villain. In fact, I want him to star in his own film instead. Okay, you're The Rock.
Well, you're The Rock, yeah. But here's the funny thing about, I mean, if you ever look at Rock movies, you know, he is always something turned something. Rampage. He was like, former military turned like zookeeper. Whatever it is, it's always something where it has to explain why the guy is just so ridiculously jacked because it's not plausible any other way. So they have to build it into the script. He's former military. He's a former cop. He was former black ops. He played professional football. Something to explain why this guy who's 6'3" and 240 pounds with like 3% body fat can actually be an actual human being in that profession.
They actually did that with Total Recall in 1990 because the character that Arnold Schwarzenegger plays, Douglas Quaid, is supposed to be an accountant. But very obviously, you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger and go, yeah, that's not an accountant. So he became a construction worker instead.
Well, in the original book, was he an accountant?
Yes.
Okay.
The original book, he was an accountant, and the remake from somewhere in the 2000s, he was an accountant. Okay. But for Arnold Schwarzenegger, he was a construction worker because he didn't look like any accountant.
Yeah. Well, supposedly, from what I understand, the movie actually ends for real when he actually goes into the machine. All the rest of that after that is an actual dream sequence, which kind of bummed me out a little bit.
Well, they never finalized that. It's like you have to decide, was it real or was it fantasy?
Supposedly Verhoeven came out later and was like, yeah, actually the rest of it was just a dream sequence.
Yeah, I rather believe it could have been either one. Otherwise, yeah, it does kind of suck.
I'd rather believe that it was actually legitimately real. Let me live in the fantasia in the fantasy world.
I never saw the film Sucker Punch just because someone had told me like, oh yeah, all that action and stuff, that's all inside her head. Like she's actually in a mental institution and she's picturing all this stuff on how to break free. It's like, I want to see someone's imagination I want to see someone's imagination if I don't know it's their imagination.
It's like having the Sixth Sense spoiled for you. I mean, at this point, it's been 23 years, I guess, since that movie came out. But still, when at the time people were like, "Oh my god!" Now it's like, well, it's not really watchable because you know how it ends.
Yeah. So, like, if he said, "Oh, well, you know what? That actually happened once before." Not to go too much away from that. You're talking about the Sixth Sense. Like, hey, what would have happened if they said that he died? Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Really good film. You can watch that one over and over again, but the commercials literally spoiled the big reveal of that film.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because it took me years later of like watching it after being a filmmaker and seeing the build up to the meeting of the two Terminators and go, wait a second. I think you were supposed to think that Arnold Schwarzenegger was all the bad guy to this point. Apparently you were. Like James Cameron said that's what it was, and as like, I can't believe they spoiled that. No one realized it.
Well, in the original script for that, Michael Biehn, Kyle Reese was going to be the T-1000.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They were actually going to have him as like a total 100% role reversal where somehow Skynet was able to recreate a T-1000 to look like Kyle Reese. And they figured audiences were going to be way too confused by that and probably wouldn't take to it. So they took Robert Patrick instead.
Yeah, I always wondered, like, the T-1000 could stab people and punch people or kill people. So at the beginning of the movie, all he does is he punches a cop. And it bothered me for years until I realized what they were going for.
Well, he also killed the foster parents too, Xander Berkeley and whatever that lady was from Aliens, whatever her name.
He did, but not until after the reveal.
Oh yeah, okay.
That's what I'm saying. Everything before the reveal, he just came off as like someone looking for John Connor and was very nice as he did it.
But you mentioned it before. That's a movie. 30 years later, the special effects still work. How many movies really can you say that the special effects still work 3 decades later?
The Abyss, but it was made by the same director.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, The Abyss, the Aliens, well, Avatar, Titanic, fine, but Jurassic Park, sure.
Does the Avatar still stand up, or do they look a little more cartoonish these days?
I mean, a little more. Good.
I think with I think last time I watched Terminator 2, the special effects were finally starting to show their age a bit. But yeah, it's like he used a computer animation, which was pretty much a mirror effect. It's hard for that to really like age after a number of years.
Yeah.
Unless
But-
it's the Secret World of Alex Mack, then it ages very fast.
Hmm.
I'm not probably the only person in this age group who gets that.
I've heard of
Uh,
that. Well, I was going to say also, if you could put fast forward 11 years later to bring it back to The Rock, the first movie I believe he was ever in, The Mummy Returns, when they made him the Scorpion King. If you
Oh,
remember
yeah. That was bad when it came out.
Dude, I saw that in theaters, and none of us actually took that seriously.
Yeah, I saw it when I was a kid on VHS, and I was just like, why is The Rock suddenly a video game character?
Yeah, and a bad one at that. No. Oh yeah, that was. I think fans have gone back and re-edited it and like deepfaked it essentially to make
Yeah.
it look more legitimately now.
I forget, there was a company that actually went on its way and used their special effects skills to make it look better. And it still kind of looks pretty bad, but they did. I think they even got The Rock involved to kind of get his face. But yeah.
Yeah, that movie in general was kind of. First one was better.
Yes. Brandon Fraser.
Yeah, who basically what he's on some DC show now, right?
Yes, he is on Doom Patrol.
Okay. Well, there was a whole big thing that came up, I think it was yesterday, about the fact that the body double inside doesn't get the credit that the voice actor does. Because Brendan Fraser basically, for the most part, rarely wears the suit. He just does, some kind of ADR in the back end. And it's like, starring Brendan Fraser from the studio, it's like how much
Who's
is
Darth
Pablo
Vader?
Pascal really in the Mandalorian outfit?
Who's Darth Vader?
David Prowse.
How many people say James Earl Jones?
A lot. Well, David Prowse didn't realize that until he actually saw the movie. He had no idea he had been dubbed over because
That's
nobody
my
knew what Darth
voice.
Vader- Well, if you listen to the original YouTube, it's weird because you got this granted this big, but he's a British guy. He's like, tell me the plans for the rebel base, and it's like your voice doesn't work here. I mean, Hayden Christensen is playing Darth Vader again for the Obi-Wan series that's coming out in a couple of months. I'm very curious to see that, and I'm very happy for him to get a chance at redemption after what pretty much crushed his career.
But James Earl Jones is probably also going to be doing some voiceovers.
You know what? You can't have Darth Vader without it. But it's nice to see. I mean, they may have Hayden Christensen unmasked or something to be like, "Hey, look at it's me," kind of thing. But I'm happy for him because he got a lot of crap after that too, and it wasn't his fault. It was the direction and the editing that made him look bad.
I'm going to put a sound effect to him on my board somewhere because we bring him up so many times on this
I know,
show.
I'm beating
We
that horse.
need it.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. I thought you actually had one going on.
No, I don't.
All right. Well, we've only got 12 minutes left, so I promise I won't talk about anything more Star Wars at this point. So, but
Did we have anything else to add to about MMJs? And well, you know what? I want not to get away from acting, but because I'm more of the background. I think it's just the industry as a whole. Like we were talking about a lot of the indie films. It's usually like a 2 to 3 man crew. The first time I was on a set where there was a dedicated camera, director, AD, producer, script supervisor, I'm like, wow, this is a lot of people here. I usually do this with me and a buddy, and we knock it out in 30 minutes. But I'm seeing now, I guess, because there are so many kids like me who do all this stuff, a lot of the industry part of it is now going, I think we can take advantage of this.
You may be
You don't
right.
have to pay out so much money.
I mean, in the television industry alone, there's automation systems that can allow you, like, someone to be a one-man band in a studio. Like, I know an automation system created by Grass Valley, which will pick your camera shots. If there's a robotic camera system, it will actually move the camera to wherever it needs to be. You can program in the automation. I need a 2-shot here. I need a close-up here. I need a wide shot here. You can program it to tell it what audio levels to turn on, like mic 1, mic 2, mic 3, shut off, mic 4, etc. It will play the graphics, like the lower thirds, like these lower thirds we have here, like my JT, my opinions are my own. Like all that's done by one person. And I think the more and more the industry is going in that direction, and I don't like it.
I used to
Well,
work for
yeah.
Zaxcom. Zaxcom is a company that
Mhm.
makes the high-end audio, transmitters, receivers. They make the field recorders, like the mixing consoles. They've got a specific one that's. I think the industry with those mixing consoles have kind of gone to like where if you shut the mixing console off, all the sliders go down, kind of thing. And
Mhm.
when you turn it on, it goes right back up to where it was, kind of thing. Well, they're into doing that type of thing. So a lot of that stuff is being transferred through like IFB. The a lot of the signals and the automation and stuff like that for audio, at least. So it's been around for a while. They've just kind of been kind of fine tuning it, I think, for
Mhm.
audio.
No, the place I've been working the last few years has been using an audio board like that. It's kind of amazing to watch where you could either be in the audio booth and control your audio,
Right.
or you could be at home with a web GUI in front of you,
Mhm.
and you could hit memory, and you'll see
Right.
all the different faders load to wherever it needs to be, and
Right.
then manually manipulate them from your house. And you could be sitting in your bed and being
Mhm.
the audio engineer for
Use
some
your
television show.
your
You can
iPad.
be on the other side of the planet, and obviously with laptops and tablets being so much touch based now too, you can do all of this 12,000 miles away and still operate everything.
The
Uh,
company that I worked for has a studio in Dubai. I
mhm.
I I used to have to check it before our shows, and it was always sort of fun that I could turn the lights on and lights off on a studio halfway across the world from where I was
Mhm.
sitting.
And in an instant too, no less.
Yes, it was like a second delay.
IOL, instant
Yeah,
on lighting.
yeah. But it brings up an interesting question because so many millennials and Gen Zs and everything like that do everything all in one, with whatever device they use. And, between TikTok and YouTube, we talked about that before. That might put some pressure on the industry because the industry itself, obviously using union people, would rather trim down what they would need so they don't need as many people for something like this. So I almost wonder if some of the bigger productions are going to try and start to figure out a way to not have to use union talent.
Well,
Well,
as we kind of, I'm sorry, Rob. Every time you go to talk, I
no,
start.
I'm just saying. I feel the same way. It's like even with the commercials, they're trying to use non-union talent to be involved in those
Yep.
commercials and things like that, so they don't
No,
have to pay the
15%.
union. Yeah.
But as we've kind of had this conversation, I always think about like how they're trying to do more with less. It's
Mhm.
like at what point does all those people on the bottom just go, "Why do I need these people on the top?" and just start doing their own thing? Eventually, does that mean that eventually the top is going to collapse? A lot of these people are going
We're
to find
not
themselves
One would
gonna
homeless.
assume,
take
yeah.
it. Oh no, we're not gonna take
I
it.
I'm personally part of the generation who I stopped watching movies most of the time. Like for these shows, like I had to go out of my way for some of the stuff we review just to watch it. Otherwise, I'm happy to sit down and watch YouTube. And I
Yeah,
talk
same
to
here.
other people too. Same thing. It's like, yeah, we'll just watch the free content made by some person who did this passionately in their free time.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of YouTube content that I watch, that hell, she watches.
Hmm.
Imagine that one. I mean, Matt Pat, she loves Matt Pat, and she'll get on my ass if basically there has not been a new food theory or film theory because it's just some, I mean, obviously it's something massive at this point, but between people like that or Harry Potter theory, you got these guys who are just basically just sitting like we are and getting millions of subs. So yeah, what's the point of going to school when all the education is available online, YouTube anyway, what's the point of working your way up entry level, which is an additional thing because a lot of jobs now, they want to know what kind of social media following you've got. So
Mhm.
it's not so much even you're good.
No, the only
Sorry.
thing I was going to say, I was going to let you finish your point because I might be a little off topic here, but
We're all
when I started watching YouTube in 2006, I really thought a lot of these people were going to become superstars that would elevate into TV and
Mhm.
movies. But thinking about it, not many have. Donald Glover is the only one I can think of who really elevated past the YouTube stage into superstardom. Has there been anyone else?
Not to that level. No, I didn't even know he came from YouTube. I knew him like from 30 Rock and I think SNL.
He came from Derek Comedy, which was a popular online video with College Humor and YouTube.
Okay. Well,
So,
College Humor also launched a lot of people as well.
such as
Well, actually, sorry, I was thinking Funny or Die. I'm sorry, my bad. Because Funny or Die, I think is owned by like Will Ferrell now too.
yeah.
But
Well, it used to be they sold it to someone. Funny or Die is pretty much dead.
but I mean, if you look at like Disney brings in a lot of YouTubers and influencers. I know Matt Pat, Markiplier. I don't think PewDiePie. I think, but you know, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye. They all have like shows separate or together on Disney now.
Yeah, I saw that. Was it Disney or was it Cartoon Network that
I
had
saw it.
like
I
the?
saw it on Disney.
Okay. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, it was Disney. It was Disney, and they like it's just them doing their usual YouTube show, but it's like a 5-minute clip on Disney Plus or Disney XD.
Yeah, and it was one of those things that it was for any fan of any of them, you know, or if you're a fan of two of them, you get excited that you know, it's like, you know, Markiplier is with Matt Pat. Oh boy, yay. You know, or something like that where you kind of geek out a little bit because you're seeing your fandom worlds collide a little bit.
Mhm.
And that's where I think the appeal is to the YouTube generation. And you know, yeah, TV is on its way out. Cable, I think, is going to have to restructure itself or it's going to be screwed. Which opens up so many other things because it's also so much less expensive to a lot of times produce something for YouTube than it would be for regular broadcast on, you know, CBS, ABC, or NBC.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, you're not going to get your big blockbusters from YouTube because no one has that type of budget. Granted, Kung Fury, I thought was going to bring in a lot of stuff, but in 7 years, we haven't even seen a sequel for that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get all your documentary. Like, there's so many documentary series I watch that it's just made by people like, okay, I find this subject very interesting. I'm going to spend the next 3 months researching it and making this amazing video. And I love that.
Yeah. And also, a lot of those videos are only like 10 minutes in length. So it works for people when they're sitting on a lunch break, you know, or they just have a little bit of time where you can't sit down for a 22-minute episode plus commercials. But if you're sitting down in your lunch break and you're eating a sandwich, bam, you knock out a 5 to 10 minute video. That's the niche market of YouTube. So,
And right now, we're going to have to knock out this show.
yes, I think we're at this point. Yeah, we got about 2 minutes left. Mr. Leckington, any final thoughts from you?
Well, I'd like to promote that. What am I promoting? I got something that I wanted to promote, but I'm good. No, everything's great.
Right. He's going to promote something, but basically it's so big.
I'll remember it next week. Tune in next week.
Tune in next week to find out what
Same Rob time, same Rob channel.
That's right.
How about you, sir? Anything else?
I have nothing to promote. I guess, yeah, things may be coming up in the future. You shall probably find out very soon.
Yes. So things are happening for all of us in our own little worlds in our own little ways, which will be released and announced pretty soon in its own time. But yeah, for me, like I said, I'm Scott Churchson. That's Mr. Robert Leckington and Mr. JT McGuire down yonder. This, of course, is Tales from the Film Set. You can find us that way on Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook at Tales from the Film Set, or actually on Twitter at Film Set Tales. What we'll a lot of times do is we'll take snippets of this stuff, add video, add a little footage, add a little fun. So you get the short, sweet version in case you basically don't want to sit there and listen to us talk for 55 minutes. Kind of moving that direction with that and the Sports Den as well. But one more time, yeah, like I said, you can find us on any of those platforms at Tales from the Film Set or Twitter on Film Set Tales. Like I said, one more time, I'm Scott. That's Rob Leckington. That's JT McGuire. Thanks as always for tuning in. Appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Stay awesome.
Bye-bye.